Welcome back, future healer pros. This is the third video in the series, so we're going to add 3 things to your skill set. Don't panic, we'll cover each one in detail and give you practice so you can see how they work. The first one is actually passive, so you don't need to do anything, but you do need to be aware of how it works. As we'll be using Scholar for this practice, let's talk about our fairy, Eos. Eos is a pet who follows you around and heals party members every 3 seconds. With impressive range, automatic healing at 180 potency on a consistent basis, Eos's healing is very helpful over time. The only downside is that you can't control who Eos heals, and sometimes it will be someone other than who you want. But free healing is still free healing, so this is a plus. Eos's embrace potency is over 1/3 the amount of physic, so it's definitely worthwhile to make sure she's summoned. She also needs to be summoned to use some of her helpful free abilities like Whispering Dawn and Fey Blessing. Always double check that she's out. If you die, you need to resummon her. Speaking of Whispering Dawn, last time I mentioned getting some early regen, or healing over time practice. Whispering Dawn is a 60-second cooldown that provides 80 potency healing every 3 seconds, 7 times. That adds up to 560 potency, which is stronger than Physic, for free, every minute. It grants this regen to the whole party, so you might think it's best to wait for a group attack to use it. In some trials this may be true, but for general use, don't waste it. Even if it's healing topped up DPS, it's still healing the tank. It's a great tool to use on pulls to get an entire cast's worth of healing for free over time. But in order to see how much effect this ability has, you need to see it in action without other numbers and concerns taking up your brain space. It's good for us that level 30 unlocks Scholar because we can run Haukke Manor, or Haukke Manor as I like to call it, with Adloquium unlocked. Our practice will be a challenge at the start of the dungeon, but first, let's cover how shields work. First, note that you can only see shields on the party list, so even if you're solo, turn that on. Take a look at the difference at how Physic and Adloquium are worded. Physic is a basic heal for 450 potency. Yes, that's lower than White Mage and Astrologian's 500, but don't forget, you have a fairy. Adloquium, on the other hand, has quite a wall of text that might seem daunting at first. The breakdown is that its heal potency is 300, but it grants a shield worth 1.8 times that heal. In other words, the shield potency is 540. In total, you're negating 840 potency of damage. And when scoring a critical hit, the 1.8 times shield is based on the critical heal, which we generally assume about 1.5 times, and then gains double the shield. This is around 2000 potency. However, you can't guarantee critical hits except with one ability at level 74. Think of criticals as a happy accident more than a game plan for now. Still, 840 potency is nothing to sniff at.
A word of caution to this tale.
Unless the target is damaged and going to take damage, Adloquium's healing or shields can be wasted. For now, I want you to keep Physic on your bar for emergencies, but in practice, I would like you to not have to use it. With that said, let's put all this knowledge into practice. First, use the Duty Finder to enter Haukke Manor with unrestricted party enabled, so you can enter alone. Also turn on level sync if you're above level 31. Step 1. Enter Haukke and summon Eos. Step 2. Remove all your gear that gives a vitality bonus, then use the recommended gear button to put it all back at once. This will increase your max HP, giving you a deficit. Eos will immediately heal you. You'll see that number and how quickly it comes. Step 3. Activate Whispering Dawn. Get a feel for how much it heals. Step 4. Use Adloquium on yourself. Get a feel for how much it heals and how strong the shield is. If you want, keep using Adloquium until you get a critical, and maybe you'll see how it's not something you can really bank on. For practice, you're going to run into the first room on the left, ignoring the maidservant that's going up and down the hall. Before you go in, use Adloquium on yourself for a shield. Enter the room, use Bio on all 3 enemies, and then win the battle with the 3 enemies using only Ruin, Bio, Adloquium, no Physic if you can, and Whispering Dawn. Adloquium eats your MP, so use Lucid Dreaming whenever you can, starting at around 8000 MP. Sometimes the enemies will interrupt your casts. This will also help you build your reflexes. Using only Adloquium will help you get an idea of how well the shields work, how quickly they disappear, that you should wait to use shields until existing shields are gone. Try not to waste Whispering Dawn's effectiveness by shielding too early either. It might take you a few tries, but if you can clear this room using those tools, you have a good grasp on how to manage damage and healing, and you'll lessen panic as you let your tools do the work. Also remember that tanks will have a 20% damage reduction, high defense armor, mitigations, and substats that help with receiving healing, so it'll be even easier to do this in a party. Now it's time to run the dungeon for real. First, make sure Eos is summoned. Before engaging with any enemy, use Adloquium on the tank for an extra buffer. Remember your basic principles. You'll be on the run a lot, so apply damage over time to as many enemies as you can. When you stop, instead of immediately reaching for the healing spell, activate Whispering Dawn. This will activate healing over time for the whole party, but odds are the tank is the only one benefiting, and that's okay. Now as usual, damage the enemies and gauge the tank's HP. First, let Whispering Dawn do its work. If you heal the tank to full and apply a shield, Whispering Dawn will be wasted. Let the tank sink a little before throwing on another Adloquium. After Whispering Dawn is through, take a more proactive approach than with White Mage. Scholar's biggest healing strength at this stage is shields. Shields can be applied at any time, so it's best to use Adloquium when the tank is still close to full. If you're struggling to juggle shields, it may be prudent at this stage to use Adloquium, then a few physics until you improve. But again, we want to get to the point where we're just using Adloquium. So the basic structure is, you're going to start with Adloquium before combat, use Bio as you run, then use Whispering Dawn when you stop, use Ruin for damage, and then focus on Adloquium for healing and prevention. Once again, Adloquium, Bio, Whispering Dawn, Ruin, Adloquium. Scholar is a different flavor from White Mage and Astrologian, and it's not for everyone. But if you can at least get to the point where you see the benefits of healing over time and shields, you're ready for the next step. You're doing great. Learning to heal is tricky, but by now you've gotten the hang of how to use your global cooldown, how to heal and raise, and what regen and shields do. The next step sounds intimidating, but it'll teach you a lot and be easier than you think. Become a better healer by not healing.